The wind cut softly through the glen, carrying the scent of damp heather and peat smoke. Cameras stood like sentinels around the set, their lenses glinting in the cold Scottish light. Between takes, the hum of crew chatter faded into the distance, leaving only the quiet rhythm of rain against the canvas tents. Sam Heughan sat on a weathered wooden bench near the edge of the field, his plaid cloak draped over one shoulder. He was still in costume, the lines of Jamie Fraser's world etched into his expression. Caitríona Balfe stood a few feet away, her back to him, gazing out over the misted hills. The rain had started to fall in fine threads, softening her hair into darker curls that framed her face. He watched her for a moment, not as Jamie watched Claire, but as Sam watched Caitríona. There was a difference, one born of years of shared scripts, laughter between takes, and the invisible tether that had grown quietly between them. "Are you hiding from everyone, or just from me?" Sam finally said, his voice low, teasing, but laced with something she couldn't name. Caitríona turned, her lips curving into that familiar half-smile that always disarmed him. "You talk too much between takes, Sam. I'm just giving my ears a rest." He laughed, the sound carrying warmth through the chill air. "Ah, you wound me, Balfe. I thought we were friends." "We are," she said quickly, her tone softening. Then, after a beat, "That's why I can tell you when you're being insufferable." He grinned, but her words, and the way she looked at him when she said them, stayed with him longer than they should have. The assistant director's voice broke through the quiet. 5 minutes, everyone." Caitríona turned back to the hills, her breath forming pale ghosts in the air. Sam rose and walked to stand beside her. They didn't speak, the silence wasn't awkward, it was weighted, fragile. After a long pause, Sam said softly, "You know, I read something last night. A comment, one of those endless threads." Her head tilted slightly. "About what?" "Ideographic period, about us." Her laugh was quick, uncertain. "There are always comments about us, Sam. You know better than to read them." "I know," he said. "But this one, it got under my skin." She turned fully to him now, searching his face. The rain gathered on his eyelashes, and for a moment, he looked less like Jamie, more like someone who'd been holding too much inside. "What did it say?" she asked quietly. He hesitated, his jaw working. "It said that whatever's between us, on screen, off screen, isn't real. That it's just good acting. That we only pretend to care." Caitríona blinked, taken aback. She'd read hundreds of comments like that over the years, cruel, adoring, ridiculous. But something in the way he said it made her chest tighten. "Sam, that's just noise. People, ideographic period, no," he interrupted, his voice rougher now. "It's not just that. It made me realize something. That maybe I've been pretending less than I thought." Her breath caught. "What do you mean?" Sam's gaze dropped, then lifted again, steady, unguarded. "I mean, maybe I stopped acting a long time ago." The rain deepened, falling in silver sheets. For a moment, neither of them moved. The crew, the cameras, the world, all seemed to blur into the background. Caitríona opened her mouth to respond, but no words came. The air between them felt electric, too full. She saw in his eyes the same quiet turmoil she'd felt in herself for years but had buried beneath professionalism, boundaries, friendship. Her voice, when it finally came, was barely a whisper. "Sam," but before she could say more, the director called them back to set. "Places, everyone, we're rolling in too." Caitríona blinked, stepping back instinctively, retreating behind the mask of the character she'd worn for nearly a decade. Sam took a slow breath, nodding once, and for the first time in years, he couldn't find a line to hide behind. As they walked toward the lights, the distance between them felt heavier than ever. The day ended in a blur of lights and laughter, the kind that felt too bright, too forced. By the time Caitríona slipped out of her costume trailer, dusk had already swallowed the hills. The set was quiet now, only a few crew members packing equipment into trucks. Somewhere in the distance, she heard Sam's laugh, low, warm, familiar. It tugged at something inside her that she'd been trying not to name. She found him near his car, talking to a member of the crew. His hair was still damp, curling slightly at the ends, and his hands moved animatedly as he spoke. He looked so effortlessly alive, the kind of person who made others feel lighter just by being near them. When he noticed her approaching, his face softened instantly. Heading back to the hotel, he asked. She nodded. Yeah, you. Ideographic period. I was thinking of taking the long road, he said, glancing toward the glen. Needed a bit of air, I think. Something in his tone made her hesitate. There was a quiet weariness there, a heaviness that didn't belong to Jamie Fraser, or maybe it did, in some shared way that blurred the line between actor and role. Mind if I join? She asked before she could talk herself out of it. He looked surprised, pleasantly so. Not at all. They drove in silence for a while, the hum of the engine filling the small space between them. Outside, Scotland stretched endlessly, rain-slicked roads winding through mist and moor. It was beautiful, haunting, lonely. Finally, Caitríona spoke. You've been quiet since earlier. He smiled faintly, eyes still on the road. I suppose I'm still thinking about what I said. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. Sam, she said softly, we've known each other for years. You can tell me anything. You know that. His hands tightened slightly on the steering wheel. That's the problem. I can't, not always. Because when I do, it changes things. She frowned. Changes what? He didn't answer right away. The wipers brushed rain from the windshield in slow, steady arcs. Finally, he said, everything. Caitríona's heart stuttered. She turned toward him, but he kept his eyes fixed on the road. Sam, he exhaled sharply, a sound halfway between a laugh and a sigh. I meant what I said earlier, about not pretending anymore. It's not just acting for me. The way I look at you, the way Jamie loves Claire, somewhere along the line, those feelings stopped belonging entirely to the script. Her breath caught, the world narrowing to the rhythm of the rain and the soft crackle of tires on wet gravel. Sam, you can't, she began, but he shook his head. I know, he said quickly. I know what you're going to say. You're married, you have your life, and I'd never want to cross that line. But I also can't keep pretending that what we have is just chemistry on camera. It's real, Caitríona, even if it can't be what people think it is. The honesty in his voice hit her like a wave. There was no performance here, no rehearsal, just Sam, raw and open, saying the thing they'd both avoided for years. For a long moment, she said nothing. Her mind raced through memories of late-night shoots, shared jokes, long drives, moments where silence said more than words ever could. She'd always told herself it was friendship. Maybe it still was, but friendship wasn't supposed to ache like this. Finally, she said quietly, you know, sometimes I wonder if we were meant to meet, not as actors, not as characters, but as people who understand each other a little too well. He glanced at her then, his eyes searching hers. And what do you think? Ideographic period, I think, she whispered, it's both a blessing and a curse. A faint smile touched his lips. That sounds about right. They stopped at a lookout point overlooking the valley, a vast stretch of land disappearing into fog. The rain had slowed to a drizzle, soft enough that they could roll the windows down. The air smelled of wet earth and pine. Caitríona leaned her head back against the seat, eyes closed. Do you ever wonder what it would be like, she said quietly, if things were different? He didn't have to ask what she meant. Every day, he admitted. For a while, neither spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was full, alive with everything they couldn't say. Then Sam's voice came again, lower this time. You know that comment I mentioned? The one that said it's all fake? Yes. He turned to look at her. It bothered me because, if people could see us like this, when the cameras aren't rolling, they'd know it's the truest thing I've ever felt. Her throat tightened. She wanted to respond, to find words that could hold the weight of that moment, but nothing came. Her heart was too loud, her thoughts too scattered. So instead, she just looked at him. And in her eyes, he saw everything she couldn't say: gratitude, confusion, affection, fear. The drizzle outside turned to mist again, wrapping the car in a quiet cocoon of gray. Sam's hand rested on the center console, just inches from hers. Neither of them moved. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a promise. It was simply the truth, suspended between them, as fragile and undeniable as breath. When Caitríona returned to her hotel that night, she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing his words, the honesty in him, the ache. She stood by the window for a long time, watching the rain streak down the glass. Somewhere across town, she imagined Sam doing the same, both of them trapped in the same storm they'd helped create. And as she finally turned off the light, one thought wouldn't leave her: what if he hadn't said it? Would silence have been easier, or would it have hurt even more?